He found his neighbor's abandoned bride freezing in a blizzard. What he did next shocked the town. The wind howled like a living thing, clawing at the houses on Maple Ridge as if trying to rip them from their foundations. Most people in town had locked their doors long before the storm reached its peak, everyone except Daniel Hart. Daniel had never been the type to sleep easily in a blizzard. Maybe it was because of his years as a volunteer search and rescue worker. Maybe it was just who he was. But on that particular night, as snow hammered the windows and the world outside turned to ice, something tugged at him, an instinct he couldn't ignore. He stood at his front window, mug of coffee warming his hands, when he saw it, a lone figure stumbling down the street, barely visible through the whiteout. At first, Daniel blinked, thinking it was a trick of the storm. But when the figure collapsed near the fence line of the abandoned Miller property next door, he felt his heart slam into his ribs. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat, shoved his boots on, and plunged into the storm. The cold hit him like a punch. The wind ripped the breath from his mouth. But he pushed forward until he reached the figure, a woman, crumpled in the snow, her white dress nearly indistinguishable from the ground beneath her. A wedding dress. Her veil was tangled with ice. Her fingers were purple. Her lips trembled as she tried to form words that never came. "Oh God," Daniel whispered, dropping to his knees. Hey, stay with me." She looked up at him, barely conscious. Her eyes were full of fear, heartbreak, and something deeper, something shattered. Daniel scooped her into his arms, feeling how weightless she was, how dangerously cold. He carried her through the storm, kicking his front door open with his boot and rushing her inside. He set her near the fireplace, wrapped her in blankets, and gently rubbed warmth back into her skin. Her teeth chattered violently. "You're safe now," he said softly. "You're safe." For several minutes, the only sound was the crackling of the fire and the distant roar of the blizzard. Then finally, her voice emerged, thin, breaking. "My name is Lily." "Lily," he repeated. "I'm Daniel. What happened to you?" She swallowed, eyes glistening. "I was supposed to get married today." Her breath shuddered. "But he left me. Right at the church. No explanation. Just walked away." Daniel's chest tightened. "I couldn't face anyone," she whispered. "I didn't know where to go. I kept walking, and the storm. I didn't realize how bad it would get." Daniel felt something twist in him, a mixture of anger for what she'd been put through and admiration for the courage it must have taken for her to speak at all. "You didn't deserve that," he said. "Not even close." She let her head fall back against the couch, exhaustion pulling at her. "Why are you doing this for me? You don't even know me." Daniel paused. The truth was simple, but people often overlooked simple things. "Because someone should have shown you kindness today," he said quietly. "And because no one deserves to face a storm alone." Her eyes softened, not with romantic spark but with something purer, the fragile gratitude of someone who had been seen when they expected to remain invisible. Hours passed. The storm raged. And in that time, Daniel made soup, found dry clothes for Lily, and set up the guest room so she could rest. He didn't push her for answers. He didn't pry. He simply stayed nearby, present, a steady anchor in a world that had suddenly spun out of control for her. By morning, the blizzard had calmed, but the town had not. Word spread quickly. The abandoned bride. The storm. Daniel carrying her through the snow. People whispered, speculated, judged. But something else happened too. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years stopped to check on each other. Strangers offered hot meals and warm coats. The local church opened its doors as a warming shelter. It was as if Lily's story had reminded everyone how fragile life was and how powerful a single act of compassion could be. 3 days later, when Lily felt strong enough, Daniel drove her to her parents' home in the next county. Her mother cried when she saw her. Her father shook Daniel's hand with both of his. But before Lily stepped inside, she turned to him. "You saved my life," she said softly. "But more than that, you reminded me that people can still be good. Daniel shook his head. You saved yourself. I just helped you get warm. No, she insisted, eyes shining. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, hope. He didn't know what to say to that. So he simply hugged her, and she held onto him as though anchoring herself to the world again. In the weeks that followed, the town kept talking about Daniel Hart. About the man who had opened his home to a stranger in a wedding dress on the coldest night of the year. But Daniel didn't care for the praise. He didn't think what he'd done was extraordinary. To him, the extraordinary part was Lily. She sent him a letter a month later. Inside was a simple line written in graceful handwriting. When the world left me in the cold, you chose to be warm. I'll never forget that. Daniel folded the letter and placed it carefully in his drawer. Because he knew the truth, storms come for all of us. But sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to step outside, reach into the freezing dark, and say, "You're not alone." And that, he realized, was enough to shock any town and maybe even change one.